Hello and welcome to another episode of Mastering Entrepreneurship. I am your host, Ravi P. And today my guest is none other than Miss Cassidy Kallenborn. Cassidy, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So Cassidy is another colleague in the MIE program, the Master of Innovation and Entrepreneurship program at UCI's Paul Mirage School of Business. And she has her own unique background. Her relationship with being an entrepreneur isn't the same. I mean, I guess nobody's entrepreneurial journey is the same, and that's why we're making this show. But most of the guests have experience in the corporate world or vice versa. You have I know you're into online reselling. You were a private chef. You were a collegiate athlete. You have a lot of different world experiences. So, Cassidy, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background? I obviously already know plenty, but share it with our audience. Where are you from?
So I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and then I went to college at the University of South Florida, which was also in Tampa. So I spent most of my life there before relocating here for graduate school. I obviously went there and played soccer for the full 4 years, and then actually transferred to UCI to do my 5th year as a graduate transfer. And then I started my, I guess what you would call like my first experience as a personal chef was in my senior year of college. So I started meal prepping for some of my teammates and my roommates and some other college athletes at my school. And then when I relocated here, I kind of just picked up where I left off. But instead of doing the meal prepping specifically, I do more of like in-home cooking and actually a lot of cooking classes as well. And then to touch on what you said about the online reselling, I do also have some just like eBay, Depop, e-commerce stores, which I began, I would say January of 2019 is when I began those as well.
So what got you into, so have you just always been into cooking? Is it just a passion of yours? You're just passionate about cooking?
Yeah, exactly. My dad taught me how to cook actually, and it's something that I had interest in since from a very young age. Like as long as I can remember, I was helping out in the kitchen from like the age of 5, 6 years old. And I would, spend nights watching Food Network with my dad. Like I was always very into the whole cooking world and fine dining and things along that nature. And then when I went to college and obviously played college athletics, I kind of developed this nutrition side of cooking, which became, my own style of how like I express myself through food, alongside all of the nutrition knowledge that I picked up and required doing college soccer.
So was that like nutrition and health based because you were in athletics? That was like you were trying to figure out how do I perform better? How do I get my teammates to do better?
Yeah, absolutely. That's not something that was ingrained into the way of cooking that my dad taught me, to be honest. It's something I kind of like sought out on my own. When you're younger, you don't really pay attention to your nutrition as much. Especially as athletes, most people
Yeah.
just naturally stay in shape, and then college athletics is very hands-on. Like you have a trainer, you have a nutritionist help, like you have a strength trainer, but you also have people helping you in all these different aspects. So it just became, and you're surrounded in a culture with all of your teammates who are also very interested in their nutrition, to perform at their best. So it kind of just like became routine.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm I'm not a very good cook. I did take some cooking courses in college, but they were kind of around. I've been interested in like the biology and the chemistry that's actually happening, the science side of what's going on during cooking, the reactions and smoke and all that cool stuff. Um, but I never really just had that passion, and I see it in other people who get excited about it, and they're like, "Oh man, taste this and taste that," and they're always trying to stick food in your face, and you're just, "Oh, okay." And they're always like watching your reaction, like, "Oh my god, yeah." Ooh, huh, huh." So I my hats off to people who have a passion for cooking, and because food is just a obviously we need it to live, and when I don't have a great food understanding and a great understanding of nutrition, you could probably, over over this stay-at-home order, my nutrition has probably really been declining. I feel like I haven't had an actual meal in weeks, and I've just been snacking all the time. So let's talk about that. How has this stay-at-home order been treating you?
Oh my gosh, honestly, I've been talking a lot about this, and part of me feels guilty for saying it, but it has been so great for me. I mean, it,
Don't feel
well, I
guilty.
I'm very fortunate. I live, in the Balboa Peninsula, Newport Beach, so I obviously live right across the street from the beach, which is, a huge factor. Kind of pulled into their apartments with nowhere to go, but I'm able to go to the beach, pretty frequently. So that's a big part of it.
Mhm.
But it's very exciting for me to a lot of people like to be on like a routine and wake up the same time every day, go to class, go to the gym, whatever they like to do. But I actually prefer to function not on a very like regimented schedule, which you
Mm.
can probably tell, going to school with me that like I'm a little scatterbrained. So it was very exciting for me. I mean, aside from the obvious issues with the whole stay at home order, but this like the whole scheduling situation at first was so exciting for me. I'm like, I have pretty much endless time to just create whenever I want. And for me that's like sometimes I'll wake up and I'll spend 3 hours developing and photographing a new recipe,
Mhm.
or like I'll wake up and maybe I feel inspired to go into a photo shoot, which in turn becomes the pictures that I'm using on my Depop store, for example, to sell my clothes. And I don't know, yeah, it's just given me so much flexibility to be creative and spend like more time with my food. And I can tell that like all this time is kind of starting to pay off in terms of, I've actually acquired some new long-term clients from this situation. It's kind of
Oh,
funny
that's
how that
awesome.
works. Like I said, I almost feel bad talking about it because it's a terrible situation, overall. Um, but for example, I was kind of interviewing for some sales jobs in Los Angeles for post graduation. We're finishing up in June, and the future of those companies, they've halted hiring at the moment. I'm like, okay, so I need to kind of
Yeah.
focus on picking up more work as a chef, and in turn, like with this time and the situation, I have solidified more like long-term work as a chef.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy to hear that somebody's having a good time, and that that
I know
this is
my
giving.
roommates always teasing me. They're like, "You're thriving." I'm like, "I know." Because, and I'm also, I mean, it's weird because I'm not a homebody in the sense that like I don't like to leave the house. I mean, obviously I love traveling, like in the normal run of things. I love to like go to music festivals on the weekend and travel to different cities and all of that, and I love to be like outside in nature. But um there are things that I appreciate about spending a lot of time at home. Like now, I've like planted an herb garden, things like that. Like that, I like to enjoy like taking care of my home and stuff. So, yeah, it's a pretty great situation, especially as a freelancer. I'm sure anyone else that freelances can relate. Like, it's just so nice to be able to have time to yourself to kind of like think about new ideas. When you're going out and like on a scheduled thing with the same people over and over, it kind of clogs your creativity to come up with new things.
Sure, yeah. I I really like the herb garden idea, and I think that's something that everybody could do while they're at home. And it gives you a little something to watch it grow and change, and you get to enjoy the herbs that you're growing. What herbs did you plant?
So I have, and actually when I say plant, I don't actually have a yard, so it's kind of like a concrete
Sure.
garden, which is super easy. Obviously
Yeah.
plants really thrive in California, so they're pretty low maintenance, but I have some basil, some rosemary, cilantro, parsley. I think I might have some chives out there. One thing that I actually didn't know about that I started doing during this quarantine, kind of funny, I've seen a lot of people do this, is this chef David Chang posted a video of himself regrowing his green onions, which I guess is very common. It's like a pinnacle of Asian cooking, green onions, but they
Hmm.
actually just resprout in water. And it's
Yeah,
been amazing because my house has like been eating from the same green onions this entire quarantine. It's kind of like a funny experiment to see how long they last.
that's awesome. That is so cool. And it's just sitting in water. You didn't
Yeah,
put it,
just a cup of water.
holy cow. So that's
Yeah.
something everybody could do if you're listening. Take your green onions. You used the top,
Yeah,
right?
use the
What
top
you just
part. They re-sprout like crazy. I mean, I've probably like harvested the new sprouts like 4 to 5 times by now. And
oh
one
my
of my roommates just loves it. He thinks it's like the greatest thing ever. He's like, we have green onions for life. But so funny.
That's all it is. It's crazy that like these that plants are just it's just a plant, water and sunlight, and then bam, you get green onions.
Yeah, I
Pretty
know.
cool.
I'm
That is
not sure.
something that is something that I'm gonna do right when I get home. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find some. I'm gonna rifle through because you could do that with a lot of plants, right? You could do that with lettuce, like if you have romaine lettuce,
Yeah,
um,
celery.
celery. Celery's a good one. I'm totally doing that right when I get home. I didn't think of that this whole time. I could have been gardening, and I love plants. I grew up around plants. My parents had a nursery. They bought and sold plants when I was growing up. So I don't know why I haven't thought of that. But
That's the most amazing thing that I always talk about with cooking is, and I always tell people that aren't into cooking, I'm like, you should really try it at least as a hobby because even when you're not gardening or, like growing your green onions, like we're talking about, it's just you become so connected with your own food and your body, but also the world, because like you said, it's just so amazing that water and sunlight is harvesting nutrition that you can consume.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's an awesome tip. I think everybody should do that. Go home. Don't like if you're at home listening to this right now, go to your refrigerator and see what you could stick in some water and watch it grow. So you'll enjoy the rest of this quarantine. You can start thriving like Cassidy.
It's funny. A
So
lot of
Cassidy,
movies I know have been like I see the post. Everyone's on the green onions from that one post from David Chang. It's so funny.
oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, it's happening. I'm doing that. I know I have some green onions at home. Okay, so Cassidy, I'm glad you're doing well during this and you're in high spirits. I know it's not the case for everybody, but uh, it seems like this is a good fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the program and uh, how I might have noticed that you're a little atypical or scatterbrained, as you put it. Um, how do you like this program? It is a very highly structured program, and that might not be the perfect environment uh, for you, but I don't think I see you as someone who's like struggling to keep up or anything like that. I think you're just kind of on your own schedule.
yeah, I think the thing that's really interesting and effective about the program is that it's kind of, it can be hands-on or hands-off. You can sort of cater the experience to every individual, which I really appreciate. Like, I appreciate that we don't have the stress of like studying for exams weekly, or tons of assignments. It's kind of just like, here's the information that can help you, and then you can take that information and apply it to your life any way you want. That's something I really appreciate about the program. And it's so interesting, even though it's such a short time, to kind of see, obviously our group is very close knit, it's only 41 people, and see how everybody is like taking their experience here and like catering it to fix their own life.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. That's a very astute observation. I never really noticed that, but I am seeing, and it's funny because I'm sitting here literally interviewing people face to face, or virtually face to face now, uh, and asking that question everybody, and everyone has a different answer, and they all say positive things. Sure, they have they have problems with the program as well, but uh, it's our first year, and everyone is taking, and they're getting, and I don't know if it's just because that might be a common thread amongst all of our personalities. We all are just like, well, we're here, I'm going to get mine for sure. And then, yeah, I'll just deal with the other problems. Those are fine. That's like no big deal. I'll take the bad also. But so
Yeah,
I'm,
I mean, it's nice that it almost feels like I'm not like in a traditional college.
mhm,
It kind of just feels like training resources for our careers. There's a lot of flexibility. It's not all like this homework assignment, that homework assignment, which is,
right.
I think, does kind of make it a little difficult for all of us to do group projects together, for sure. But overall, yeah, like I really enjoy the flexibility of the program. When I was looking at UCI, I was recruited to play soccer here, and I actually was looking into doing the MBA program.
Mhm.
I just figured that was like the normal path. I have a business undergrad degree, and then I saw this program, and that's never, studying entrepreneurship is never something I really like considered or even knew existed. And then I thought about it, and I was like, this kind of sounds like it's a little more catered to someone like me, and I really appreciate that they've gathered such a diverse background of people, not only like where we're from, but you've studied music, and we have a couple musicians in the class, and people that are interested in fashion to science. It's very interesting to me to kind of see like everyone interacting together and like kind of exploring their own path. I don't think there's going to be many people from our program who kind of like go into the same path, like, oh, um, like I think people have lots of different kinds of careers following
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the diversity of backgrounds is, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I
Um,
have to agree. I'm like, when I got here, I was like, wow, they really handpicked every person here.
Yeah. What, so, okay, yeah, we like the program. We like the program. What things do we not like about the program?
Um,
There's got to be something. I know I have my problems, especially, I mean, I'm just like so focused on this remote virtual environment now, and that has become the focus of my troubles. But I'm sure I had problems during the first 2 quarters, and now they just seem trivial.
yeah.
What what kind of problems have you run into?
I Okay, so my whole thing on this program is that I feel like it's kind of like a halfway between a 9-month incubator
Mhm.
and a graduate degree. And I've kind of talked about this with some of the administrators that I think they should either narrow it down to one or the other or provide like an option to like
Mhm.
for both options. So I like obviously we go to class, but I feel like our class workload is actually not strong enough to be like, oh, for example, I learned and understand finance now, or like bookkeeping and accounting. Like I kind of wanted some more like concrete um knowledge, whereas I feel like we kind of just touch, like we grasp over it because
Yeah.
yeah, because it's how short the time is. But on the
Mhm.
other hand, as an incubator, it would be like kind of perfect too. I think they should just kind of like diverge and narrow it down into those two sectors. Like, here's the information on entrepreneurship, and more people like, I personally was looking for more like less soft skills and more specific stuff. Like I still don't feel completely comfortable like putting together a financial forecast, for example. But
Sure.
had it been a 9-month incubator, I think there's a separation in our class where some people are kind of like, especially people like you who have more corporate experience already, you're kind of ready to
Mhm.
like dive into your entrepreneurship journey. But there's a
Mhm.
lot of recent graduates like me who I think would benefit from more of just like a learning experience, or one or the other.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Like, doing financials, creating financials for a company is not something that is learned in 5 weeks, right? It's not mastered in 5 weeks, at least. They could give you the high level kind of overview so that you might be able to ask the right questions or have a conversation about it so you can make a judgment, but you wouldn't be able to retool someone's financials to remodel how a business is being done. So I feel you. I feel that it's kind of a like they could have just given us workshops on that so that we can have those high level discussions, or they should have been like, no, you guys need to learn, like these are necessary skills. If you're in a startup environment, you're going to be doing your own financials unless you have a teammate that has like their focus was finance.
Right.
So
And
it's
it's kind of interesting because obviously our capstone project, which has gone over all 3 quarters, is in my eyes what sort of seems to be like the incubation part of our program.
yeah.
So I think they definitely have the resources and the tools to just provide that separately.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good feedback. So I don't think any of the administrators listen to our podcast, but if they do, they could take note on that one.
Yeah.
Um, so you were talking a little bit about your plans after graduation. I want to dive into that a little bit more. You said you were trying to line up some prospective jobs, and there's pretty much a hiring freeze across the board, right? Like companies are like, we have no idea what's going on. The future is so uncertain. There's all these corporations laying off massive amounts of their workforce right now. And I have a certain perspective on it. I think that we are actually going to be very in demand in the coming months. But I'm interested in hearing your perspective. What's the prognosis after graduation? Do you think you're going to have to really just bootstrap your own operations and be working as a chef and pushing product through your online stores? Or do you think that you might be able to get some employment at a corporate job and get that experience that you're looking for?
I was actually just talking about this with one of my peers, and yeah, obviously there is a big hiring freeze overall. But like you said, for people like us who have such a unique skill set and like, a unique educational background, I think our opportunity is really great right now. Like I was
Yeah.
telling someone, they were like, oh, I mean, I'm not gonna, kind of search out for jobs right now. And I was kind of like, this is the perfect time because, for example, in my field, now I'm coming across like virtual cooking teacher, virtual cooking camp teacher, all these kinds of different like jobs that didn't exist a couple months ago. Like out of every situation, there's always going to be a need for new things. Like I said, I actually got new clients due to this whole thing because now I'm working with people that are one, taking an interest in their health more due to the whole situation, but just from the simple fact of spending more time at home now. And so, I mean, I haven't been discouraged at all from the situation. However, I think all this time, like I said, like I've really been enjoying myself. I think it made me come to realize that I would prefer not to go pursue a corporate job, and I am just going to continue doing what I do now. So I landed a great job. I'm going to be, when people start to feel comfortable, I actually got hired to work on a yacht charter. So I'll be like taking night yacht cruises to Catalina for groups of like 6 to 8 people who are chartering the yacht and cooking for them. And just continuing to work with my other clients. And like you said, I use my online stores as like a separate income. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep, going down that path.
So another knowledge. Oh shoot, hiring freezes? That's okay. I got this. I'm gonna go out on the boat.
I know. I mean, I get that a lot from my friends. That it's typically my mentality is very chill. Like I don't really,
Yeah.
I'm not someone that's like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen now? And I mean, I think it's so much more effective to kind of have that mindset because your thinking is so much more clear. Like obviously when this happened, I just had to everyone's sitting at home with all their thoughts, and I don't know, I just had to kind of evaluate like, all right, things have changed. So what do I do now? Like, how do you change your own actions and your own mindset to kind of match what's going on in the world,
Yeah. Yeah. So what I was thinking about this is like, yes, right now there's hiring freezes, right? Across the board. Everybody's like, okay, no, we're just getting rid of people because our operations are collapsing around us. We don't know how we're going to prop this up. Essentially, we are trained to think in a disruptive way, right? As an entrepreneur, we think, okay, how can I build the business that disrupts either this specific company, like what this company does, or an industry, or like that entire vertical, or how do I use a technology that kind of disrupts horizontally across industries? So we have this like unique skill set. We are the first cohort in California to get a degree in this. And it's from a reputable university. We have world leader type professors, and we are all highly trained in doing that. So I think once things start calming down and everyone's starting to, they've done their damage assessment, they're like, okay, what, where are we dead? Where are we? How many dead do we have? You know, this is a war, and I think they're going to be knocking on our doors, or we're going to be getting phone calls of, you know, we need you to come and look at our company, either as a consultant or come in, and we're going to try and just pick up the pieces here. All we have are all these problems, and all the people that work at these companies are these hard and soft skill focused people. They're like, I don't know how to solve problems unless they're finance problems. I don't know how to solve problems unless they're an accounting problem or a HR problem or whatever. Everyone's kind of stuck in these boxes in the traditional means. And that's not what's going to get companies out of this mess. What's going to get them out is the innovation, is the disruption, is the outside the box thinking and looking at problems from this high view and coming up with a holistic solution for it. So that's my prognosis. I mean, I just noticed that your middle name is Hope. So I think that's very fitting in times like this with your attitude. And but however, I am hopeful as well. I think right now we're in a chaotic crisis mode, but when things start leveling off and we're like, okay, we've hit the bottom, we're ready to start picking up the pieces and rebuilding, but we want to be resistant to something like this should it happen again. How do we do it? And
Right.
that's where people like us come in.
Yeah,
We
I
have
mean,
to come up with those solutions.
obviously overall, the situation is very upsetting. But from like our perspective and the people that we attend school with and people that are like us, new thinkers, it's almost kind of exciting situations like this. It hits and then it's so many new opportunities are waiting to be created by people like us.
Yeah, for sure. So what is in the short term uh, for you? Do you have plans coming up? Um, I mean, you said you're looking at starting a job when the boat chartering starts coming back in, and you'll be on a chartered yacht. Um, so I guess I kind of already asked you that question. Um, let's move on to another question. What long-term plans do you have? What would you like to accomplish in 2 to 5 years?
Um, I think that in the next 5 years, things will kind of look pretty similar, just more developed. So I really am just honing in and focusing on, developing my client base. And obviously, the more experience you have,
Mhm.
the more accredited you kind of become. So that's
Yeah.
in my short-term plans. And then obviously you are aware that I'm working on developing my own consumer product, which is a beverage, going to
Yeah.
be marketed at music festivals, which is another one of my passions.
Let's
But
talk about that. Actually, I totally skipped over that. Let's talk about the beverage. And it's funny, this is very like reflective of everything that we talked about. It's about nutrition, it's about being out and having those connections with people. So I'll just let you start telling us about your beverage.
Okay, well, music's always been another passion of mine. I mean, I never pursued music in any sort of like professional way, but I've
You
always,
love to sing, though.
I'm sorry.
You
Oh, I
love
do
to
love to
sing.
sing. I do. Yeah, you know that. But yeah, I mean, I went to my first music festival when I was probably 14 years old. Like, it's always been such a huge passion of mine going to live music. I mean, all through high school, I probably went to like 4 to 8 concerts a month. Um, and then even through my college years. And then I always, my whole life dreamed of moving to California and going to all the music festivals out here in Coachella, for example. So I relocated to Orange County April of last year, so it's just over a year now. And one of the first things I did while I was here, it was actually like the second weekend I was here, is I went to Coachella. Um,
Good
and
thing you didn't wait. Good thing you didn't wait a year.
I know, I know. It's so funny looking back now because it was a terrible like financial decision at the time. But I just felt like I was like, oh, don't wait long. Don't want to have to wait until next year to go. And thank God. So for anyone that goes to music festivals, they obviously know like Coachella is one of the most beautifully produced, just like perfect. It couldn't get any better. I mean, Bon Appetit magazine actually has referred and quoted Coachella as one of the best food festivals in the world. Like the food and beverages there are impeccable. Like they bring in all the top LA chefs and bartenders and like, all of the top alcohol brands and like tea brands, and they just have everything there. Obviously, yeah, the main point of Coachella is to go and experience the music aspect of it, which I also love and appreciate. But I just remember being blown away by like all of the vendors at Coachella. I'm like, wow, because some of the music festivals I've been to in Florida don't really put an emphasis on those things. So it's kind of more just to go and party and like see your musicians and whatever. Whereas Coachella was like this overwhelming sensory experience. Like I just remember, you're standing there and you're watching a musician you love and you're eating something from a reputable like Michelin star LA chef. It's just an amazing feeling. And I remember at Coachella, I just remember thinking like, okay, I actually would love to see something that I made at Coachella one day. Like it would just be unbelievable accomplishment to vend at Coachella. And obviously back then I didn't know what that would be or what that would look like. I kind of just assumed in my head like, oh, my restaurant concept or to go food or some sort of like nutritional entity. That would be so awesome. That if you're a chef, that's your goal, making
Yeah.
something for music festivals, Coachella would be like the end all. So it was very inspiring to me at that time, and that's when I kind of realized that I wanted to sort of cater something to that community. Being a personal chef I talk about this a lot, it's really different from being like a restaurant chef. And in fact, especially in fine dining. And I think the main difference and the reason that I believe I'm so good at my job, even though I don't have any sort of like culinary experience, like culinary school, for example, is not that I'm good at cooking, but it's the level of empathy that I'm able to have for my clients and getting to know them and catering food for them. Whereas restaurant chefs, especially really good ones, are more of like they're almost like a really like confident musician or like a really overconfident artist or a painter who's just like, no, this is my work and this is how I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it exactly like this. And if like people don't like it, that's their thing. Whereas as a personal chef, it's kind of more about like, how can I make this person like happy or fulfilled or, you know, comforted in a certain way for your food.
Right.
So obviously, being really passionate about music festivals and going to tons of music festivals, I've like kind of gotten to know this specific niche audience of people. I spent the whole summer going to music festivals after Coachella, before our program started. I legitimately was going to like one music festival every week. If not,
Whoa.
it was like a concert or a show or a couple shows per week. I mean, it was nonstop. All I did was go to music events because I was just so like stimulus overload, you know, moving to, you know, 1 hour outside of LA, all that stuff exists here to such a
Right.
high level. And then we kind of like, you know, we roll into orientation and they kind of encourage you to start thinking about our capstone project, like what you kind of want to pursue during this class. And I just conceptualized Revive, which is a beverage, a nutrition beverage that could be sold at music festivals. That's kind of in line with a sports drink. For example, like Gatorade, which has electrolytes, except it's something that like I personally feel I haven't really seen anything like this. And it's funny because I just spent all that time talking about like, oh, I'm making it, you know, for this audience and these people because I know them so well. But I'm also kind of making it for myself because, you know, I think to myself when I'm at these festivals, like, oh, I'd really like to have, you know, a drink that tastes like this, but also does this for me. And it's just not something that I've been able to find yet, which is exactly, you know, how new businesses are kind of created. And it's weird being in business school. I think it's not that like I don't enjoy business school, but I've definitely come to realize how my thinking is so much different than I think like most of the people around us in business school, and even some of the like, you know, CEOs that we talk to when we go on site visits, where their plan is kind of like, okay, I want to have a job, or I want to create a business to create revenue, like let me study the market and like come up with something, you know, find a gap in the market. Whereas for me, that's not really the case. Like it's even in college when I started with the meal prepping, it was kind of like, I need this personally. Let me see if I can go out and find it somewhere. I couldn't find it, or I couldn't find it up to the level that I would want it to be at, especially with, you know, food, because it's so subjective. And that's kind of the same mentality that I've taken on with this consumer product is I want it personally. And I know, you know, that having a hard time, it doesn't exist. And I know that my audience would also like appreciate it and love it just as much.
You know, the way you just described that was so like experiential. Everything was, you were talking about your experiences, right? And you're not like in business school, they train us to kind of, we look at a market from kind of a third party perspective, right? And we study the competition and the what is the value to this market. And it's so like outside looking in, right? And I think the way that you've developed this idea and your business plan was the exact opposite. You are you are inside experiencing the market, right? You are a member of the market, and you being in touch with yourself and you're going like, what do I need right now? What do I want? What am I missing? And going to these music festivals, you're like, excuse me, you're going like, I have everything, awesome food, awesome music, and you know what? I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. What do I want to drink? Gatorade? Not quite. I don't need that. I need something like Gatorade, but what is it? And you're looking for it, and you're looking for it, and you're not seeing it. And that is how you found that unmet need. You're in the market being the customer, and and had this experiential journey through it. And I think that is a very interesting way of thinking about business and how we go about finding these unmet needs, where we forget sometimes that we are people too. In a business school, we're, so straight-laced, suit and tie, briefcase kind of people, and the person that goes out there and experiences and lets their hair down and has a good time out there in the world is just like somebody else. You know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
very conflicted. And so I think you bring a very fresh perspective to like this process. And I think this is something that, you know, might help bring a lot more people into the realm of business and being an entrepreneur and coming up with their own ideas. And it's just going out there and experiencing the world and being passionate about things. Like you're just passionate about going to music festivals and you're passionate about eating good ass food. That's it. It's very like, it doesn't have to be
Right.
hard. Like this is not
I
hard,
know.
you know?
It's so funny that you recognize, like the perspective that I'm trying to give off, because that's really was what it was like. And obviously when I moved to California, I didn't know anyone. So I like was actually going to a lot of like these types of events that I'm describing by myself, and that's how I meet people, make friends. But I think it did give me such a unique like perspective on things, because instead of like focusing on your friends that are there, I'm actually just in the middle of everything, like talking to and looking at the people around me, and it's kind of just like being receptive to their needs. I remember, one of my close friends actually visited like later in the summer, and I remember her asking me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what's with you going to all these music festivals alone, like all the time? Like, like do you have your shit together? Like, are you still gonna go to business school and all? And I just remember like telling her like, no, trust me, like I'm doing something right now. I didn't actually know what it was at the time. I didn't know that I was maybe doing like market research, but that really is what I was doing prematurely to actually developing the product. I mean, even to the point, and it's kind of funny, it took me some time to look back and realize that that's what I was doing. But like I used to even carry around like a really small notebook just in case. I mean, I do this as a chef. I do this because you just never know, like sometimes you might be out eating something and you might want to like write an idea down that you have for something. So I would bring this to music festivals, and kind of like if I had any thoughts about the way something tasted or like something that I need to change in my own cooking, I would write them down. And that was one of my issues, when getting to business school and kind of talking about these products. And like they strongly encouraged us in that first quarter, like you have to go do market research, like you need to go poll people on all this stuff and da da da. And I was like, I feel like I already kind of know what people want. Like I've been out there, maybe I didn't say like, do you like this flavor or this flavor, but I can see what people are buying. Like I talk to so many people about, their experience at these places.
Yeah. And I mean, all of that stuff can be done, later. But the hardest thing about, uh, starting a business is coming up with that idea and finding that, is there enough people that would want to buy it? And like for you, this was something like it had already come to you through this like experiential journey. It had come to you, and then now you're in business school and you're like, okay, now yeah, I can go make an appointment with the research librarian and we can look up data, and we could do that business type of work, because yeah, that's going to need to be done, if you want to convince people to invest so you can actually scale this drink and manufacture it on at scale and distribute it at scale. It takes a lot of money, and it takes even more convincing. so so yeah, that stuff has to be done. But I think the hard part is being out in the world and being raw and being receptive, because it's a vulnerable state to be in, like as a person, you're just like, I got to take everything in, good and bad, just everything, and filter through it, and your emotions and your logic and your reasoning has to all kind of just like start making sense of all of this crap. So very cool. Well, we are actually running out of time, so I just gonna ask a couple of closing questions. We got to talk about a lot of cool stuff. Um, do a quarantine garden at home. Uh, we got to talk about Revive a little bit. We really got to talk about inspiration and being receptive out here in the world. And what did I not ask you? What was something that you might have wanted to talk about, or that I should have asked you for my podcast?
I don't know. I mean, that's such a specific question.
It's
But
so
I guess,
specific, but it's also broad, right?
I mean, something that I like to always discuss, especially in business school, and since most of our peers are aspiring entrepreneurs, is I love talking about inspiration. I could talk about that all day, and it's weird. I actually don't feel like I identify, if people are like, oh, what do you do? I wouldn't ever really say I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I know I am. It's clear, I work for myself. I make my own money, but I don't really identify with being an entrepreneur so much. I sort of identify more with being an artist in terms of how I go about, you know, doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always telling people and like encouraging some of our peers to just spend more time trying to be inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's not always a really clear answer, especially if you know, perfect example, I'm always pushing Gabby with her, and I know you interviewed her, so the listeners can relate to this, with her on Archive. And I'm always pushing her, not because I'm like, I feel obligated to push her, but I actually I really want her, thing to come about because I think it's awesome. Like I would totally be a customer, but I tell her all the time, I'm like, just start like experimenting with making clothes. Like, who cares if they suck? Like, go get a sewing machine on Facebook. Like, just go out there and do it, and just become inspired by like shopping, maybe not right now, but like looking at fabrics, like going into thrift stores and seeing what's going on. And I do stuff like this all the time. Like, there's certain things that I can't explain to people, and they're always like, oh, like, why do you feel like you have to go? And I'm like, I don't know, it's just like drawing me there. Certain places, like I'll just randomly take a drive to like a cliff view that I really enjoy, and looking at the beach and stuff, or music is very inspiring to me, in my cooking. So I think I would just encourage, like people listening to this that are aspiring entrepreneurs, or, our classmates and stuff, that they kind of have to stick with what inspires them and spend a little more time doing that, because everybody thinks it's always about like grinding and spending time being productive and like checking things off your to-do list. But if you actually don't take a moment to step back, and even if you're just right now looking for a job, like if you just want to go work in the corporate world after this, at some point you're going to have to take a step back from like LinkedIn searching and sit and think about like, what skills do I have that are unique, and what kind of environments do I thrive in, and where could I be of use like in this kind of new world. So that's something that's really important to me, and I actually like prioritize it and do consider it to be productive.
Yeah. No, I think that is a very, very good point. A lot of people think that inspiration has to come just naturally. You just go and do your thing. Or you just go and like keep working or whatever, and you'll be struck by inspiration, right? Like it's going to be a phenomenon of being hit by lightning. You're just going, oh, I'm inspired by something. And it's not always like that. Sometimes you need to just go break your routine and do the things that you enjoy doing. And if it's spending some time with friends, most of the jobs that I've gotten aren't from handing out my resume and going on LinkedIn and just, going to job fairs and all of that. I go out with my friends and I meet someone new and we start talking and we're just having a good time. And they go, hey, so Ravi, what do you do? And oh, I do this and that and whatever. And I open myself up to somebody and they go, I'm looking for someone just like that. Or, we need someone like that. That come and meet my boss or whatever, and that's like really the best the best way of finding a job is strike and inspire someone else to believe in you. So you do have to do the work to inspire yourself, and you need to be out there, be ready and willing to inspire other people. So it's not just something passive. And I think that is a very, very important lesson.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I've even heard like some of the business people in Orange County have kind of touched on like, oh, you might like gain 50 pounds and like work, your health might not be your top priority and blah blah blah. And I remember thinking like some of my like greatest like moments in business, whether it's like in my chef work or in my beverage art, like come from me doing yoga. Like I'll be really on edge, like stressed out from the week, and like this list of productivity that you're always trying to knock off, and then the moment I like take a step back and I'm like, no, I'm gonna go to yoga today, and you're thinking about other things, and like you think about your body and your health instead of like trying to get from point A to point B in your career. That those are some of the moments, like you said, where you have like your best revelations.
Yeah. Okay, last question. What is your favorite emoji?
My favorite emoji? Oh my gosh. Right now, it's probably, I really like the purple square heart. But I use that one a lot. It's like, it's the white heart and the purple square.
Okay. All right. Purple square heart. Why that one? Why not just the regular heart?
I don't know. I mean, it just really catches my eye. I love all three of those. The one with the peace sign and the one with the yin yang sign. Those are my favorite. I love the color purple.
Mhm.
And I think like there's something really visually pleasing about like a perfect square or perfect circle. And then
Mm.
obviously I love hearts as well, which sounds like pretty girly, but I love wearing hearts. I love, like, they make me feel like happy, and obviously it spreads like a subliminal message of love, but the little emoji hearts are a little, I don't think they're that cute for some reason, but there's something about like that perfect square. It's just nice.
Okay, well, that's a good one. Well, that's it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you folks at home for joining us. Uh, Cassidy, Hope, Kallenborn, I am forever grateful for you coming and having this awesome discussion with me. And I can't wait till we can hang out again. It's going to
Yeah,
be awesome.
thank you. This was so much fun.
Thanks. And thank you. We'll see you next time on the Mastering Entrepreneurship podcast. Here we go. I'm doing this thing I saw on TikTok again. I just saw it. I don't know. It makes TikToks go viral. So you can do it with me, Cassidy, if you want.
No,
Right?
We're gonna
Thank you guys so much for watching and being part of the podcast. Don't forget to share this with all your friends and family. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Don't forget TikTok. If you want to get in touch with us, go ahead and email us at info@miepodcast.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.